Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. What's going on, guys? Taking a look at the Dockers today. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I hope you had a nice Christmas out there. This is my first video filming and recording after Christmas. I think I had one scheduled to come out the other day, but I did that one before Christmas even happened. So we're back in business. I must admit I'm feeling a bit cooked. Big night last night. If you're wondering why Shorty's wearing this bizarre little tank top setup, Joey, who is a watcher of this channel, so is a lot of his mates, so shout out to you lads there. They came and supported the subscriber kick last year, so much appreciated. But Joey had me in the old Kris Kringle, and he knows me well. Iron Paradise. He's giving me the real... getting real fucking huge these days. So, a bit of a piss take present, which I respect. I respect that, but he said to me, I will actually use this. In the gym. I'm not waltzing around a public gym. I'm just in my garage, so I'm not one of those blokes walking around because there aren't too many guns on show, nor a good tan line. So it's not the greatest rig of all time. But hey, we're out there making those gains. But Joey said, you'll have to wear it in one of your videos. So here we are, as I just adjust the microphone. But thank you very much, and yeah, it's been a big couple of days. Not just really Christmas, but yeah, these early mornings starts at Coles, they're just not for me. 6:30 start this morning. I'm telling you, if the sun's not up, neither should you. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't mind getting up for a walk every now and then. Look at a sunset. It's nice, but getting up to work, not that early. Not for me, thanks. But I was the architect of my own demise, though. I did go out last night. Was somewhat disciplined. I was tucked into bed at midnight and sort of eased up on the vodka orange juices relatively well. But me and Jonah went out for a few drinks and thought, come on, it's Boxing Day. We've got to have a bit of a session. But yeah, got home and was like, tomorrow's going to be tough. And it was. So yeah, but it was a scorcher today. Obviously, you're watching this on a different day because I'll schedule it, but today was 37 or 38 degrees here. It was absolutely wild. So I was just chilling by the pool with Langers and a couple other friends. So it was a good day, but I'll tell you what, I said, come on, Shorty, just do a video, keep the momentum going. But after this, I reckon I'm just going to really dial it right back and just have a shower, chill out. Don't know how we're going to go sleeping. That could be interesting. I don't think it's going to drop below 28. So that should be interesting. Don't even have a fan. So going to have that aircon pumping. But let's take a look at the Dockers, shall we? We'll never get through this video if I keep waffling on about random shit. But let's start with the real business end. And it's Nat Fyfe. One of the more interesting selections this year to talk about because we have Nathaniel as a forward option. Who would have ever thought? Now, he is priced, it's somewhere around the 300s, whichever price you want to put on it. This bloke is underpriced for what he can do. But let's dive into whether he will be able to do that again, because things have changed. It's no longer Mundy's and Fyfe's midfield. It's Brayshaw and Serong's. In fact, Caleb Serong is someone I wanted to talk about, and I didn't have him up there, so we will get to Serong. As always, this is time-stamped, so feel free to, by all means, listen to the whole thing. But if you've got a particular player in mind, feel free to scroll through and let me know if I've missed anyone or any Dockers that you've locked into your team. I'd really love to hear your feedback. But Nathan Fyfe, now, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The bloke's a superstar. Look at some of these numbers. He's got a Brownlow or two, just superstar stuff. But of recent, the body has been a massive concern. Not only last year, but even the other couple. Playing 22 games was not something Nat was able to do all too often. And last year, it was really difficult to watch. He returned, and, at times he was that bustling Nathan Fyfe that we've seen, but there was definitely, as we can tell, he's available as a forward. There was more forward opportunities for him, and I think it's a bit because Fremantle need that forward option, and it's sort of Fyfe's always been touted as that taller mid that one day will be able to go forward, which I think's a massive myth. I don't know if we talk about it with Paddy Dangerfield, we talk about it with Cripps, Bontempelli. I don't think we ever really see these guys go into the forward line and dominate. I think when they drift forward, it works, or they kick goals out of stoppages. Yeah, that works. But I only saw Dangerfield do it a couple of times, starting permanent forward, because they go forward and they get a bloody good defender. So they almost kick more goals from the midfield. It's a weird thing, but Fyfe, it wasn't his year last year. You know, he battled through injury. As you can see, he only came in round 13 and just struggled. Interruptions, was subbed off once. So it was difficult for him. It sees him at a really nice price. So I guess the questions that you have to ask in terms of selecting Nat or not, we know it's value, but is he going to be a keeper? You know, and the questions around that are how much midfield time can he get? Because like I said, we've got Brayshaw, we've got Brodie, we've got Serong. There's a few more younger types taking that mantle. But Fyfe at his best clearly still plays a role in that midfield. So he's not going to be permanent forward. So can he get that balance right where he can average high 90s or even around 100? But probably the bigger concern is the body. That's the biggest concern for mine, because I see him averaging around mid-90s. And I think that's, for the price, really, really good. Of course, we'll learn a bit more through the pre-season when we start to see that role established and exactly what sort of a split we'll be looking for. Because, of course, they've got, Tabiner and a miss. And, of course, Walters and Corbett they recruited. Corbett. Josh Corbett, I think they recruited. So there's maybe not as much of a need for Nat to be forward all the time as maybe there was a couple of years ago or even last year. So I think high rotations, he'll get plenty of midfield time, but it's his body. So he would have to set the world on fire through pre-season, have a full pre-season, and really be like, I'm back. I'm absolutely back, baby. Have a look at me. So that is what I'll be looking for. He's on the watch list, there's no doubt, but there is a bit of value in the forward line. You know, Cunnington as well. There are quite a lot of lockable types, which I talked about in my team picker in that forward line. So I don't think we need to go searching for possible value. I think there is value there. And what's that, like 36 games in 3 years for Fyfe, with the worst of which the most recent, and he's nearly 32 or whatever, he's 31. We just need to see a really good preseason. But if he puts that forward, you got to consider him. You just have to. But until then, probably going to just steer clear for the moment. I just wanted to touch on Sean Darcy. Not a big one, but I just wanted to talk about sort of the Jackson and Darcy dynamic. I don't think it bodes super well for either of them in a scoring sense. I think Darcy is the sort of guy that could ruck solo, and we saw what he could do in 2021. You know, outstanding stuff. Last year, not so much. We still saw some massive scores. Like, he's capable of some huge ones. Like, look at that. 155, 178 in round 8. But look at all this, you know, sub-affected games. Some struggling scores in there. But look, sharing the ruck isn't ideal. I think it could be really dynamic for how the Dockers work as a combination. I think it could be great for them as a team. But for SuperCoach, probably not. I dived into the ruck situation just in my most recent video ahead of this one, so I don't want to talk too much about this. There's a lot of rucks that I like, and Darcy probably isn't one, even though he is a favourite of mine. And the role that Jackson gets will be super interesting too. Talk of him being like a bit of a hybrid, sort of Mark Blitzarv style, but, you know, Blitzarv's but different. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. But until we see that, it's hard to really talk with too much certainty, and probably like some other guys, to be honest, ahead of Darcy. So the bloke's always got niggles, always got something going on. He's always got a corky or a bit of an ankle sore, or, you know, there's always something with the big fella. But he can score. He can score when he's up and running. Now, Hayden Young is about 508,000 and a real likely type. Highly touted. I selected him probably 2 years ago and he burnt me. I think that was the year when I started Jordan Clark and Hayden Young. Didn't work out. In fact, I'll be able to find that. I reckon it was 2020. No, it must have been 2021 that I started him. And he started like shit. Yeah, round 1. Oh, no, he had that 88. And then, that's right, round 3 got subbed off with an 18. Oh, Jesus Christ. But it's last year and particular games that is really the point that we want to note for Young. And I remember watching this game against the Hawks, just heaps of marks, or could have even been this one against the Tigers. Like, he just is a beautiful kick, lovely left foot, and that's what we love to see. I think he's the distributor now for the Dockers. You know, Ryan will still do a little bit of it, but I think the more that Young gets the experience under his belt, the more they'll want the ball in his hands. So he's a real likely type. Now, one of those awkward ones, 508k, like he's coming off a good year, like averaging 92. He probably needs to give us a bit more of that. You know, do you prefer to just pay an extra 40 or 60,000 for someone you can trust more? Or do you want to scrounge a little bit of value because you think Young's the next big thing? A similar discussion to Dacos. So I think the everything you'd look for in a Supercoach prospect is there with Hayden Young. You know, he can mark, he can intercept, good decision maker, beautiful left boot, and the team knows it. You know, he's that guy. Give it to Youngie at the back line. So there's a lot to like. Monitor how many kick-ins he's taken, all that good stuff. For this point in time, he's a strong watch. I think he's a really good chance to go above 95 and increase this average another anywhere from 4 to 8 points per game. Like, it's not impossible for him to average 100 at some stage. Will it be next year? Wait and see. But yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Highly touted player ever since he was drafted, and we're starting to see why. So keep him on your watch list for sure. Similar said about Brayshaw. Again, high pick. The Dockers, who are really on the up, they're building their team around these young guys. You know, you've got Young, Brayshaw, and Serong. Probably the biggest three that they're really coming through with some absolute superstar talk. And I'm not going to go for too long on Brayshaw because I think he's pretty self-explanatory. I love him. I just think this time last year I said I think he's still got room to grow. I can see him going 110, 112. He did about that. Now, this year, I think 110's about his lowest point he could go. 115 I think is possible because he's a real leader now. You know, he's at that stage where I think he really believes that he's the guy. And we saw that in the accolades he received last year. And it hasn't always correlated to amazing Supercoach scores. I think that's the interesting thing. Like, he had this round 2 score of 189. And I think at that point we thought, holy shit, he's like Clayton Oliver vibes. He's going to be 120. And after that, he had, you know, a couple of 130s, another couple of 130s along that month. And, you know, he didn't go beyond 140 other than that. Like, insane consistency. Like, aside from this 79 in the draw against the Tigers and a 77 in round 7 against the Cats. And there's nothing to be too concerned about the odd 70 odd. You know, it's not that bad. Super consistent player. But if I look at his stats, there's room to grow in terms of his contested possession, and I think even his tackles. Oh, maybe not his tackles. I think he's a pretty good tackler. Yeah, take that back. 6. But I always have this thought of Brayshaw as like an inside mid, which I think he is. There's no doubt about it. But I actually think he could win more inside pill. So 9 contested possessions per game is not insane. Like, it's really good. But I think he could actually do a bit more. That clearance count could come up, which would obviously help with the contested possession as well. So he's really, as you can see, some of these numbers here, you know, ranked first in total uncontested possessions, 4th in disposals, and you know he's probably snuck under the radar in terms of a guy who works that hard that he wins so much uncontested footy. You know, I normally think of the more flashier types when it comes to uncontested pill, but Brayshaw works his ass off and finds it. So I actually think, you know, if he lifts that inside work, which should naturally come with less Fyfe, less Mundy, like, the midfield is his. It's all his. And I think he played some good finals too. I remember Serong and Brayshaw just dominating in the finals. No, I was probably wrong. Oh, actually, interesting. 32 touches both times. Didn't resonate with great Supercoach scores. So I wonder, maybe a few clangers. I'm not too sure. Yeah, I'd have to dive deeper into that. But that's interesting. But yeah, massive fan of him. I think he's a strong chance to be in my starting mids just because I think he's one of the safer bets, and nothing like a bloke being a safe bet with a bit of upside. You know, we talk about Clayton Oliver, Lachie Neale, Tuke Miller. Like, you know what you're going to get, 120. But you do pay for it as well. Fair enough. But Brayshaw's the sort of guy where you go, I'm definitely getting a gun here. But if he has a career best, 116 average, not impossible. So, food for thought. Food for thought. There's a bit in the Dockers, so we'll finally finish with Caleb Serong. There's definitely a bit to talk about the Freo side, who I do think are on the up. I reckon there's a strong chance of top 4. And Serong will be a man pushing for it. Now, he is as awkward as it gets, really sort of dancing with his sister awkwardness here. But 82 average 2021, a lot of sort of talk and breakout last year, and we got the old mini breakout. You know, he went up 8 points per game, good but not great, and the start definitely hurt a few. You know, he was definitely a bloke a lot liked last pre-season, and his first 8-9 games didn't set the world on fire, and he missed rounds 3 and 4, so not ideal. Didn't break the ton until round 8, but after that, pretty damn good. Not ridiculous, because he did have, rounds 17 to 20 weren't amazing either, particularly with a 53 in there. But he did finish the year really, really well. And I like to see when he can get a couple of good finals in there too. It just speaks a lot to the player. It's like, shit, all right, they're big game players. We love to see that. And he was, 33 and 34, tackles, clearances, 108, 128 in a couple of really big finals. So that says a bit about him to me. And I think the midfield for mine isn't really a place that I like to muck around with awkwardly priced players, which Serong is. Because I love him as an option. If you said, Shorty, what's he going to average? Cut the shit, mate. What's he going to average? I'd say, look, mate, I reckon between 103 and probably 107. Somewhere around there. If it gets to 107, then that's a pretty good selection. But if it's more to the lower end, 102, 103, it's a bit no man's land. You're sort of picking a guy that isn't going to be a keeper, but you're also not making that much money, if that makes sense. Like, it's a nice selection. He breaks into the 3 figures. You can feel pretty proud about yourself, but you are going to trade him out because you really need him to average 107, 108 to keep him all year. So can he do that? It's possible, but probably doesn't really fit the mold of keeper or money maker. Because at the end of the day, that's really the only reasons we pick players, because we think we can keep them all year, or they can make us some really nice cash to help us develop our side. So I try to steer clear of that in the midfield because it is difficult to land those types. And I try to just not stuff around in the midfield because it's where the most points are to be had. I sort of feel just spend the cash in there because you know what you're going to get, and it's the highest scoring position. So that's my thoughts there. It's not so much a knock on what Serong can do, but just where his price fits. Really keep him high on your draft watch list, I reckon. I reckon he could be a really handy one for your draft that might just sneak through to your 3rd round or something like that, depending how smart the crew is in your SuperCoach draft. But no, he's definitely a talent. Definitely one to watch real close. So, I'm going to wrap it up there in terms of the Dockers. Thanks for tuning in. If you've stuck all the way through, really appreciate that. And man, I hope if you're a bit dusty that you're feeling a bit better over the next coming days and building up towards New Year's, because we've got to shake that hangover because it's coming up again. It's the silly season, no doubt. You've got to get stuck right into it. So I'm going to, what are we, about 9:30? So, I'm going to really kick back, probably schedule this one and just, have a pretty chill night. So I hope you guys do the same. Have a nice, relaxed week. Enjoy the holidays, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.